Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Dwayne Todd. I'm the Vice President for Student Engagement and Success and the Dean of Students. And I'm glad that you joined us this evening for a chance to talk about our fall reopening plans. As we start off, I'd like to first introduce President Rock Jones to you and do a well.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It looks like some people are still coming in from the waiting room. We're so pleased that so many of you can be with us this evening as we share more information about our plans for the fall semester at Ohio Wesleyan. We have been hearing from many of you over the last several months since students left campus in the middle of March due to the coronavirus, and consistently you have been asking us to make it possible for students to return to campus this fall. And about 6 weeks ago, I appointed a Safe Campus Opening Task Force to be co-chaired by Dwayne Todd, whom you met just a moment ago, and by Dale Brew, the Associate Provost for Institutional Effectiveness. And they have worked with a group that has met multiple times a week, each week, to develop the plans for us to be open on campus in August. As you know, we've made some adjustments to the academic calendar, and we will be doing other things differently than normal in order to be on campus. This is a rapidly changing environment across the country, as you know, so flexibility is critical for us, and our plan, while announced, continues to evolve. We'll share with you this evening what we have in place at this moment, but we want you to know that we are continuing to monitor the situation both in Delaware and across the country, and we'll make other adjustments as are necessary. The format this evening is that Dale Brew and Dwayne Todd will make a presentation joined by a couple of other people sharing plans for our Safe Campus opening. Then we will review questions that have been submitted in advance. We likely will not have time to review all of the questions, but we will be posting online an FAQ that addresses questions we were not able to get to this evening, and it may be that we'll need to have another session in a couple of weeks. I can tell by the number of you who are on the Zoom meeting this evening that your interest level is high, so thank you. I finally want to say a huge, huge thank you to the task force that has done so much work and is continuing that work. And Dwayne, with that, I'll turn to you to lead us through the opening presentation.
Right. Thank you very much, Rock. So we have prepared a lot of content for you today that provides sort of a summary of our Safe Campus opening fall plan. And I hope that you have had a chance to already review those plans that were emailed out and available on our website. We will summarize basic components of that plan today and answer many of the questions that have been posed through the web form that was also provided in the email link. We will address the pre-submitted questions as best we can. We cannot get to all of them. There were well over 150 questions that were sent in, but we will be addressing many of them and the ones that seem to be of most interest for the most number of people. We probably cannot get to questions. If you're going to post questions through our Q&A function or the chat function here in this session, we'll capture those questions and we will include those in the FAQ write-ups that we provide on our website afterward. As a reminder, we're recording the session, so you're welcome to come back and visit it for review. It'll be posted on our website or to share with other people who aren't able to join today. So I'd also, before we get started, I'd like to add my thanks to the task force. These folks have worked many, many, many hours and then some plans for the fall. And the work is still continuing at a pretty feverish pace. So I want to thank them for all their work. And there are many others on campus who are not on the force that have done tremendous work to help us get ready for the fall. So don't want to miss that opportunity. So you can see the members of the task force here. The task force charge was to establish protocols, practices, and systems, minimize the risk of spreading the virus in our operations, including our facilities like classrooms and residence halls, dining facilities, locker rooms, and in our workspaces. So the Safe Campus Plan, these sort of big picture issues. We needed to address the academic calendar in terms of the start and end time semester. What do we do with breaks, and those kinds of questions. So we did revise the academic calendar that is available on the website. It means we're starting about a week earlier than we originally planned to do, so that we could end in-person learning at Thanksgiving, and at that point have a week of online courses or remote courses, and then a week of remote exams. So the idea is that once we reach a major holiday like Thanksgiving, people want to go home. We actually don't want them returning to campus if they've been home. So for a length of time like that. So we did revise the academic calendar, and that information is published. We needed to set up a testing protocol. We are committed to doing a robust testing schedule for the fall term, and I'll explain more about that later. We needed to require face masks and physical distancing, which are terms that you're quite familiar with no matter where you are in the country. We needed to address the cleaning schedule and the disinfecting of classrooms and public spaces. We needed to address in-person events, and the task force has placed a limit on the size of in-person events that occur on campus to minimize the density of our spaces and to avoid passing the virus along. And then we needed to develop safe procedures for classrooms, dining facilities, sporting facilities, all of those areas as well. So we're going to go into these areas in more detail here. One of the things the task force did first is to lay some ground rules fall semester that all faculty, staff, and students are being asked to abide by. And we thought we would try to develop an acronym out of that, and we were successful. This mnemonic device that says "We are OWU," which is a commitment to each other to protect our campus community and the safety of we're in it. So each letter here you can see corresponds to one of the most important aspects of our ground rules. We need people to wear face coverings. We are making a commitment as a campus that we will wear our face coverings when we are together in public spaces. We are very firm on the rule that people who are in indoor spaces must be masked or have covering their nose, mouth at all times. This includes classrooms. It also includes lounges and areas of that nature. When we're outdoors and we're in close proximity to each other, we're interacting with other people, we also want people wearing a face mask when we're near together. If you're certainly within 6 feet of each other, a face covering needs to be on. If you're farther apart than that, it's less important to be wearing a face mask. So if you're on your way to class, sitting in an area reading a book, so we do want people wearing their face coverings. We want people to evaluate their health daily. We're going to provide an app that will help our individuals monitor their symptoms every day. It will be on a phone, and people need to download the app. We'll give them instructions on that. But it wants people to enter in information every day about your symptoms that might relate to COVID-19. The things that you're probably familiar with: shortness of breath, temperature, 100.4, 100.4 or higher, fever, those kinds of things. You would log those things, and someone will follow up with you to have a conversation about those symptoms and see if, in fact, we need to make sure that you get tested to confirm whether you have the virus or not. But the importance of doing that every day is critical. It's how we monitor ourselves, but it's also how we kind of monitor the health of the campus so that we can pay attention to what our numbers look like. We're asking people to avoid unnecessary travel. For sure, international travel has been suspended for the fall. Domestic travel has been significantly curtailed, and really, we don't want anybody traveling that is unnecessary. So think about the road trips in the fall. Probably need to wait until a different term to do that, so that we're not going away and maybe contracting the virus in a place that has a higher caseload and then bringing it back to campus. As you can imagine, we're requiring people to remain 6 feet apart. Everyone on campus to engage their peers and their colleagues on protecting the community. When you see someone not abiding by these expectations, we want you to say something. This is how we protect each other and ourselves by reminding people of these expectations and that these are here to protect everyone. And if by these expectations, we're not doing everything we can to make sure that we complete the fall term successfully. And it is upon all of us to do that so that we can complete the term in the way we want to. We're limiting group sizes to 50 people or fewer. There may be times when we have group sizes larger than that, but we'll require special permission in order to have group sizes larger than that, so we can be sure that all safety precautions are in place. Wash your hands frequently. You've heard that a lot as well. And we want to use this. You know, there's a way to engage your peers about these expectations with kindness. It's also important to react with kindness when someone reminds us that you probably have a mask on in here, or you're probably a little too close together, can maybe back up a little bit. We have to always act with kindness if we expect to contain a positive community through experiences like this. I'm going to address the academic calendar quickly. As I mentioned, we're going to begin classes early on August 20th. There will be no fall break this year. And that's to avoid longer weekends where people are more likely to want to leave campus for trips and come back. We are putting in a number of what we call bishop break days that'll be scattered throughout the semester. Those are no class days that will be reserved for just a chance to take a break, take a breath, and relax a little bit. They will be in the middle of the week, and so you can look forward to those occurring about every 3 weeks or so during the fall term. We will meet for classes on Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. We will not meet on Wednesday, so Wednesday there will be no classes of Thanksgiving week. That will give people time to go where they want to go for Thanksgiving. Once Thanksgiving passes, we will be only offering remote classes. So you can come back home and take your remaining classes there at home or wherever you wish. You may also stay on campus through the end of the semester. The caveat, though, is if you decide to stay over the Thanksgiving break, or Thanksgiving in our residence halls, you must agree to stay on campus over Thanksgiving. So we will be asking people to register that if they want to stay past Thanksgiving and make a commitment that they are not leaving over Thanksgiving. Again, the notion is that we don't want people traveling far away, coming back to campus and perhaps bringing this back with them. Exams will be taken remotely, and the overall message here is please stay on campus as much as you can. As we start to arrive on campus, we will have some expectations here for how that works. We're going to do what's called de-densified arrivals, and that will occur between August 9th and August 19th with various time slots. We're going to talk more about how that's going to work in terms of the opportunities to sign up. But in about 2 days, students will receive an email from our Res Life office that will explain our move-in process if they're on campus and how to sign up for an arrival time. You will have the chance to sign up. There will be limited time slots per building per day. And so we want to give you the chance to have some options about when you will arrive, but we are limiting how many people can arrive at a certain time to make sure we do this in a safer way. Only one family member at this time is permitted to help students move in. We have heard concerns, mentioned that. The logic behind the policy is, again, to help keep our buildings as de-densified as possible during a time when lots of people are moving through the building all throughout the day. Hallways get crowded, elevators get crowded, stairways, all of those things. And so we have set this policy in place to help make sure that we don't have so many people in the building that we're not able to kind of maintain our physical distance as this happens. We've heard the concern, as I've mentioned. We're talking about it again. We're not able to kind of make a commitment of any sort about a change in that policy today, but I want you to know you've been heard. Some of you who have concerns about wanting to be a part of the move-in experience with your student. So if that policy changes, we will let you know. We're a central check-in process. So that means all students checking into the residence halls will start up on the central campus on the Jaywalk area, and there will be an orchestrated process for doing check-in. At the beginning of the process, the very first thing you will do as a student is that you'll receive a viral screening before moving. The viral screening will be an antigen test. So some people have asked about the type of test we're using. It's an antigen test, which is also performed on site. So it will be a nasal swab that unfortunately is a little uncomfortable, but it's less uncomfortable than getting the virus. So maybe that's a little bit of consolation. So the nasal swab will go into your nose, and then the test will run on a device there at the testing center on campus. We will receive results in somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes on that screening to know whether you're testing positive or negative for contraction of the virus. We will not be screening parents in that process. So a number have asked, will parents who come with students need to be screened? That's not in our screening protocol at this time. So we will just be screening students, and we'll be also screening faculty staff that arrive on campus in the preceding weeks. If a student tests positive on the viral screening with the antigen test, they will receive a PCR test. So the PCR test has a little higher accuracy rate than an antigen test. So the antigen test is still quite reliable. The PCR test will be another nasal swab, but it's tested differently in a laboratory. And because it will take 1 to 2 days to get those tests back, those students who test positive on the screening will need to be quarantined until those results come back. There are often some quarantine spaces on campus. Students may also leave campus and quarantine elsewhere if they would like, while we await for the PCR test to come back. If the PCR test is negative, the viral screen may be positive, but the PCR test is negative, we will go ahead and allow that student to complete the check-in process into the residence and begin their sort of activity on campus. We will ask them to be very conscious of their symptoms. If any symptoms begin to develop, we'll want to know that right away. We'll go ahead and let students kind of move on in their process with a negative PCR test. If the test comes back positive on this sort of confirmatory diagnostic test, those students will need to go into isolation. So we have an isolation designated location on campus where to choose to isolate on campus can do so. Students may also choose to go home or go elsewhere for isolation, and that's perfectly fine. If the student is confirmed to have been positive with the virus, they will need to stay in isolation for a period of time, and it would not be unusual to be in isolation for about 2 weeks. So I would, use that as a measure of where you might think you wanted to go into isolation. For all those students who are quarantined or isolated, we're developing all the protocols we need to develop to make sure you have food and you have the equipment and supplies you need. Welcome to, if you feel up to it, start your classes and engage in those classes remotely through your isolated or quarantine location. We'll be checking in with you every day, monitoring your symptoms and making sure you're well cared for, but you will need to stay in quarantine or isolation until you're permitted to come out of it. Okay, campus life. So we've talked about the need to wear face masks and to physically distance through here. We aren't going to expect roommates to be wearing face masks when they're in their room together. We're going to treat roommates like a family unit, much like people who live at home. When no one else is present in the room, it's okay to not have your mask on. When people are present, we expect masks to be worn, even in the residence halls. There will be frequent cleaning and disinfecting of classrooms, restrooms, public spaces, meet COVID industry standards. Our company that does this for us is very well versed on what those requirements are, and we can explain about those later. We're going to post a capacity for lounges and conference rooms and those kinds of public spaces. So pay attention to those when you're on campus. There will be a reduced capacity for most spaces to make sure that people can stay 6 feet apart in them. The dining lines will be spaced out 6 feet as you wait to enter a dining location. Seating will also have some physical distancing characteristics to them. So you'll want to pay close attention to signage and that sort of thing when you're entering these spaces. There will be an app that we ask students to download to help access and facilitate access to the dining halls. So your dining plan it will be recorded on this app that has your ID number on it. We're trying to prevent the exchange of cards as much as possible on campus. So the app that you'll have and able to download if you haven't already will have your barcode on it for your student ID, and that's how you'll access the dining plans or the dining halls. We're going to add seating in Venice A, B, and C, and an outdoor tent for additional dining seating because we have reduced seating in our existing locations. Unfortunately, Smith Dining Hall is closed through September because of construction, so that facility will be about delayed after we open. It's ready for usage again. So it'll be especially kind of tight on dining in the first month, which is why we'll be adding a lot of other additional dining locations where you can pick up food, take it where you'd like, additional seating as needed. I mentioned no events over 50 people unless pre-approved, and then avoiding travel. Certainly no international travel will be occurring through the university. We ask you to monitor your health every day. This is really important. It's one of the things that our health officials tell us is one of the best ways to avoid spread of the virus is just to pay attention to your health and be looking for the symptoms that might indicate that you could have contracted the virus. We'll be asking you to do a daily self-assessment through an app that you will use to record, any symptoms that you're getting. We're going to do ongoing testing every week for about 250 to 300 students. Most of those will be athletes. So those athletes will be in closer contact with each other and seeing each other more frequently than other student groups. So we're going to make sure that we're monitoring them much more closely. So fall student athletes will be tested every week. And then a section of other students, non-athletes, will also be tested each week. And we'll probably do about 50 maybe of those students each week through the rest of the term. Students who are in quarantine will have meals delivered to you. You will have some choices about what you eat. So we want to make sure that you're being delivered meals that are appropriate to you. And you'll get daily checks from the university and public health officials. The contact tracing, which is what happens when someone tests positive for the virus, then we need to check to see who else might have been in close contact with that person to see if they also need to be tested for the virus. That contact tracing is going to be done by lower public health officials here in our county. They're prepared for that. They know how to do this well, and they will be in close communication with the university after that contact tracing to let us know these individuals need certain actions taken based on the results. Our faculty are prepared for students who need to switch to online learning because they may have become ill. So there have been questions about, what happens if I go into isolation? What do I do about my classes? Faculty know that may happen and are prepared class to accommodate those students who need to go online for that period of time. All right, let me turn it over to Doug Zip if I could. Doug is our Director of Athletics here at Ohio Wesleyan, and he'll go over some aspects about athletics with you.
Great, thank you, Dwayne, and good evening, everybody. Athletics at Ohio Wesleyan, we are committed to providing a quality experience for our fall student athletes with the guidance of being safe in everything that we're going to do. We as a conference have been working for the past about 15 weeks of developing a plan of how we're going to do this. Our guidance has been given to us through the NCAA, through the CDC, and through state and local health organizations. And as you know, and I'm sure that most of you have experienced, these have changed weekly, if not daily, on what we're doing. As a conference this week, we came out and announced that we will have a conference-only season, and we will only play North Coast Athletic Conference teams who are playing this fall. We will have a shortened season, and the first date of competition will be Friday, September the 18th. This fall, we will only play games on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays against our conference opponents, as long as they are also following proper safety protocol and testing protocols as well. We feel that that is very, very important. Every week, all of our fall student athletes, all 249 of them, will be tested along with our coaches, our athletic trainers, and other support staff that are in interaction with our athletes on a daily basis. We feel that that is very, very important. As we ease into our athletic seasons, when our athletes arrive, they will obviously be tested, and there is an NCAA 3-phase approach that we'll be following, and that takes about 35 days to move through that process, and then we will start competing on the 18th. So it's everything from individual workouts to getting them back in shape, to then moving to team practices where it's more of a shell game, where it's, you know, just an offense would be running some plays and just trying to get down strategy, to the 3rd phase, which is the final 14 days of what we might consider to be a normal practice schedule. But all this is really focusing on safety and the health of our student athletes and our community as well. We will be, obviously, we're very concerned about our locker rooms and our spaces and all of our athletic facilities. We have a detailed protocol on things that will be followed, on cleaning instructions that our athletes will also participate in, as well as our cleaning staff. I can assure you that every locker room will be deep cleaned at the end of every day by our cleaning staff. And then throughout the day, heavy touch areas in all of our locker rooms, bathrooms, athletic facility spaces will be cleaned every 2 hours. And that includes our varsity strength room. We'll also have some pretty strict protocols for our athletes to follow as we are doing strength training. And then our general athletic facilities, you know, such as Simpson Query Fitness Center and Edwards Gym, those will be open to our general campus, but there will be some limited hours. And we're going to go off some data that we've had over the past 2 years on usage of those spaces, but there will also be very, very mindful of distancing and health and safety of every user. For an example, you know, Simpson Query Fitness Center will look more like your health club, where every other treadmill may be closed off. We will limit the number of, you know, theraballs and exercise equipment and dumbbells and things like that. There'll be specific directions for everybody when they walk into the space on how they need to clean some things. We will take the temperature of everybody walking into the room, and then each fitness space will be deep cleaned at the end of every day. Just to back up a little bit, for our athletes, for those who are curious, every athlete as they arrive to practice will have a health screen, including a temperature check. And if the temperature is beyond the acceptable limit, they will then have a consultation with one of our athletic trainers, and we will make sure that they're getting the proper care that day if they're not going to practice. And if we go on the road to compete against other North Coast Athletic Conference teams, we will be taking temperature checks and health checks before our students get on a bus. And then there's also a protocol through our conference that an hour before the athlete is ready to take the field, they will also have a temperature and health check to make sure that they're safe to play the game. And then throughout the week, we will also be testing them so that we may prepare for the next week of competition. And as everybody is asking, we are currently still evaluating the decision to permit spectators in our indoor or outdoor competition spaces. This will be a decision that is going to be collaborative with our conference and then with our other campus colleagues as well. Dwayne, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, just a few more topics here. Regarding visitors to campus, we will be still doing admissions tours. So we'll be doing those in our groups, so 1 to 3 families at a time. We're asking people to hold virtual meetings whenever possible, including those who are off campus for meetings. If people need to visit an office on campus, it would be especially good if they could pre-schedule that meeting and let people know they're going to apply, so that we know to make sure we have the safety precautions in place. But we also know that students will take care of business as they need to, and we'll be ready for that. Anyone who comes to campus must follow all kind of health protocols while on campus. So whatever rules apply to staff and students for campus health guidelines also apply to visitors to campus. We are requesting that parents limit their entrance into students' residence halls after move-in. We're not prohibiting it, but we're asking you to be sensitive to entering into spaces where people are already perhaps a little anxious about having non-residents in that space. And of course, because campus you know, you've been elsewhere. They're not quite sure, you know, maybe whether you were in a hotspot or not. So we ask that you just be sensitive to that and limit your entrance to residence halls after move-in day as much as possible. So with that, I think we're about ready to move into answering some of the questions that were posed, and we have a lot of other administrators on the call to help us do that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and we'll get to some of these questions. So the first one, I think I'm going to ask Rock to answer for us, President Jones. And want you to address, if you would, what might happen if there's an outbreak on campus? So is there a threshold, or what might that be for needing to shut down campus if those cases spike?
Yeah, thank you, Dwayne, and thank you for the really comprehensive review of the plan that's been put in place. Let me note that a lot of questions are being posed in the chat function, and thank you for all of those. We will capture those questions and then post them online with answers, the ones we're not able to get to this evening. So we will address each question. It's an important question. What happens if there's an outbreak on campus, and what's the threshold at which we would close the campus? We have consulted both with the Delaware County Health District and with the School of Public Health at The Ohio State University as we have developed the plans. And the Dean of the School of Public Health at Ohio State advised us that it really is not wise at this moment to say this is the threshold at which we would close. The pandemic is unlike any that we've ever seen before, and it seems to evolve and change from week to week and from day to day. And so we will be monitoring very carefully day by day. We will have a transparent reporting process where people will know if a case is diagnosed on campus or if multiple cases are diagnosed on campus. We'll protect the confidentiality, of course, of any students or faculty or staff who are diagnosed, but we'll be reporting in aggregate those numbers. I would imagine that a decision to close would vary depending on if the cases are concentrated in a single location on campus, or if they're spread in multiple locations, which would indicate the potential for a wider spread. So know that we will be monitoring, we'll be continuously consulting with the Delaware County Health District and the epidemiologists there for counsel as if we reach a point where we may need to consider such a decision.
Thanks, Rock. Another question was how the symptom assessment app will work. So this is an app that is being developed by the company that is supplying us with our testing materials and our system. So the app will be one where the student downloads it to their phone and sets up their file. They'll be authenticated through their email address in order to create the profile. At that point, then students are able to enter in pre-existing conditions that they might have that might place them at a higher risk level for sort of dangerous outcomes if they acquire the virus. Though that information is uploaded to the company's HIPAA compliant database, we will not see that information as a university. So that goes directly into their database, but it does formulate into their calculation of whether someone might need to exercise some precautions as they check their symptoms. So they will enter in every day. They'll be prompted with a number of questions. Do you have a fever? Students will need to check the temperature every day. We will supply students with a thermometer at check-in. So some of you have asked, do I need to send a thermometer? We're going to give you a thermometer. And other things that, are you being short of breath? Those kinds of questions that we know are symptoms. And if they enter in the symptoms, then the app will tell them, you need to stay home today and someone's going to contact you to check in with your symptoms. And if they're not displaying symptoms, they'll get a green light and be able to go on their way for the day. We are going to know if students aren't, and faculty and staff, same thing, are not checking their symptoms every day. So you might get a tap on the shoulder by somebody if you're not completing your you're symptom checking every day. We do because public health has said this is one of the best ways to avoid spread is for people to be conscious every day about their symptoms. So we'll be doing that. Let's take another question here about, let's switch to academics. How will remote courses work? And what's being for students to switch between in-person and online learning? So who would like to answer that from our academic colleagues?
So I can take, Dwayne, this is Dale. I'm sorry I can't see everyone's face. First of all, I just want to say I am looking, everyone on the academic side is very much looking forward to having you back on campus this fall. It has been a very long time since students and faculty have gotten to work together in person. This is a really exciting time for all of us. We are doing this because we believe in the power of the liberal arts to transform lives. And even though a lot of this sounds like it's not all that great in terms of what we have to do, it's an amazing opportunity to be able to explore the world in a way that you would not be able to do elsewhere. So the first question that Dwayne posed, I'd like to turn that over to Dr. Ashley Beiser, who has been working very closely with our faculty to make sure that faculty are prepared to engage students in learning activities this fall. Ashley?
Hey everybody, thank you. As Dale said, we're really excited to have you back on campus. A couple things to know. So the faculty have been working all summer to prepare for a couple of different eventualities. So we have some faculty members who, because they have pre-existing conditions or are high risk, probably shouldn't be in the classroom. And so those faculty members will be offering fully remote classes. So for those students who are choosing to be fully remote, there will be a set of classes that are designed there for you, although you can take whichever you like. And so those faculty are sort of one set of people who've been working on fully remote classes. The rest of the faculty have been working with the expectation that we'll be in the classroom, but in all sorts of new and different ways, right? So one of the things that we're doing now is trying to figure out, how to make sure that even if a student can't come to class because they're quarantining, that they don't miss out on anything. And so we're working on a number of hybrid teaching modalities to make sure that students are always engaged with their professors, that they have the opportunity to continue with their coursework in whichever courses they need to, and that our faculty are prepared to work in a lot of different ways. We're essentially sort of trying to be as resilient as we need our students to be in our teaching. And so we've been doing faculty development workshops over the summer so that faculty are learning more about different kinds of technologies. We've been doing, the faculty are engaged in working groups around particular questions. So for instance, we have a working group on how to do final exams remotely. We have working groups on how to encourage student discussion in classes. And so the answer is that it's going to be a little bit different than it has in the past, right? Because we're trying to keep everybody safe. And so it's going to be a little bit weird. We're going to be teaching in masks. We're going to be socially distanced. And the truth is that that's what we have to do in order to be safe and still do the kind of learning that we do at Ohio Wesleyan. And I'm really encouraged by the fact that I think we can do that pretty well. I think we did a good job of the transition in the spring, and I think we're trying to learn from that to get better. I think, some things worked, some things didn't. We've been surveying our students really closely in terms of what worked and what didn't in the spring to try to figure out how to make it better for the fall. And so, like I said, I think that students are going to encounter a lot of different ways of engaging with faculty, and they'll have a lot of choice on their end as to what they feel safe doing and what they don't. And we're going to be doing all of that in ways that are both good for students' educations and are safe, keeping everybody safe. Because the truth is that this only works if we're all doing it together and we're all doing the kinds of things that we need to do to keep everybody else safe. And so that is what it means to be a part of the Ohio Wesleyan community all the time, but it's obviously a little bit more urgent at this moment. And so it means that we have to do a few things differently, but for the most part, we're all working to make sure that we can do them well.
Can I add something, Dwayne?
Of course.
Hi, I'm Carlin Crowley. I'm the Provost or Chief Academic Officer at Ohio Wesleyan. And I just wanted to say to all of you that I've never seen a harder working faculty who are prepared to welcome your children and our students back. Dale indicated how much we've missed them. and the kind of Ohio Wesleyan experience of individualized care, undergraduate research, thinking about vocation and calling, a meaningful life, how to have complex dialogue in no matter the context. And we all know that 18 to 22-year-olds spend so much time online. How do we have those engagements and handle conflict and have hard dialogue, even in a remote setting as well as in an in-person setting? So I just wanted to tell you that the quality of the education is our priority, and we're spending all of our summer preparing to welcome your children and our students back. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Let me ask one more academic question. It will be, how will I know as a student when there might be changes to my class schedule? How will I know which course is going to be taught online or remotely and which are going to be in person? How will I make some of those distinctions in the course catalog to be able to set my schedule and changes in it, or when will I know if changes are being made to my schedule?
I can take that, Dwayne. Our current plan is we're working very hard right now to move course schedules, to figure out what classrooms courses can fit in, and to determine exactly how faculty will deliver the courses. Our plan is to have that information available toward the first week of August, and most of that will probably appear in self-service, which is our online system for displaying your course schedule. You'll likely be able to tell in there whether a course is fully online, hybrid, or not.
Thank you, Dale. Some of you have asked when you know if you've been approved for remote learning. We've asked students to let us know by Friday if that is their intention, to be requested remote learner. I know that's a quick deadline, but as you can imagine, the answer to that question has a large impact on how faculty are preparing their course, the types of courses we offer, how many sections, where those courses can meet classroom-wise, and of course, residence life, how many people are going to be showing for move-in day. So we do need the answer to that sooner rather than later. So if that decision can be made by the 17th and shared and help, we are going to look at those as soon as we can and try to get back with students who have requested remote learning by the 22nd of July, so next day. Let's switch to facilities. And so I'd like to introduce you Dr. Maura Donahue, and she is our Vice President for Finance and Administration. And see, Maura, if you could answer some questions about campus dining, what might change, what's going to change about campus dining, how will it be different this coming year, and then also maybe talk about cleaning procedures and what those will look like.
Certainly. Thanks, Dwayne. Again, my name is Maura Donahue. We are making a lot of changes to campus dining with the intention of making sure that the experience is as safe as possible for our students. You can find a lot of these details on the Safe Campus Plan, but to give you an overview right now, I think Dwayne already mentioned in the presentation that the Smith Dining Hall will be not available until after September, so that most of the dining will be in the other facilities on campus, including the Hamwell Center, Merrick, the lower level in the Hamwell Center, and the Science Center facility will also have food service. Most of the, or all of the food service will be on a grab-and-go basis, which will allow the students to take the food to any convenient location on campus. We are adding a tent outdoors between the library and the Corns building to provide additional seating. We'll be adding picnic tables on the near the fountain area on the Jaywalk, and really increasing the availability of students to be able to take their food and to be able to provide more physical distance while they have their meal. Within the facilities themselves, we will be having stickers on the floor to mark out the 6-foot physical distancing guidelines in the food ordering process. And I think it has already come up in the presentation, there will be no passing back and forth of a student's ID card to the cashier in the dining halls. Instead, the students will need to get the GET app. It's called the GET app, and that will provide a touchless scanning system whereby that they'll scan the ID through the phone. and then the student would be admitted into the dining area. We will be cleaning, sort of closing, especially in the Hamwell Center, between the lunch and, breakfast and lunch times to do a full cleaning during the changeover periods in the meal transition. That will be done by our uniformed ABM cleaning staff, which will be providing an enhanced cleaning service, including disinfecting. Dwayne, are there any other things in terms of dining before I switch more completely to the cleaning that we would want to cover?
Yeah, I just mentioned one other. There have had access to 24/7 dining in Smith. That 24/7 is being relocated to the Hamwell Marketplace while the dining hall is finishing construction. So 24/7 dining will continue to be offered at Hamwell. It will close between breakfast and lunch, lunch and dinner, as she said, for our cleaning each day. But otherwise, it'll be open throughout the day and evening, so students can get food at any other time of day, including the weekends if they'd like to. And then when Smith opens, that'll transfer back to Smith.
I know that many of the questions that have been submitted are around cleaning protocols in the residence halls, specifically in the restroom facilities. So our enhanced cleaning will provide additional disinfecting. In the past, that had just been done once a day, but we will also be disinfecting the entire bathroom facilities another time during the day in the afternoon or late afternoon. So all of the restrooms in the residence halls, where it's a common shared restroom, shower facility, toilet, urinal, sinks, countertops, dispensers, will all be disinfected twice a day by our uniform cleaning staff. As usual, residence halls in which the students live in a suite where just perhaps 4 students are sharing a bathroom, it has been our past practice that the students clean that bathroom, and that will continue. We will not be providing any additional cleaning services in those spaces. We also had a question about hydration stations. That's where there's a drinking fountain combined with a place to do a touchless fill of a water bottle. And we've been advised by the Delaware County Health Department that the drinking fountain portion of the hydration stations needs to be disabled. So we will turn off the drinking fountain part, but we may continue to operate the water bottle fillers. And those water bottle fillers will be disinfected by ABM 3 times a day, just like all of our other high-touch surfaces, such as doorknobs, crash bars for doors, stair rail handles, elevator buttons, and those other sorts of high-touch frequency, or high-frequency touched items in the buildings. Dwayne?
Laura, can you talk about classrooms and the frequency of cleaning there?
Absolutely. Yep. So the classrooms will also have an enhanced level of cleaning. The ABM staff will wipe with a disinfectant all of the tabletops and surfaces, horizontal spaces, a touch point cleaning 3 times a day, the light switches and the door handles, but all of the flat surfaces would be once a day. All of our buildings will also undergo what's called electrostatic spraying of disinfecting, and that will be once per week for every surface, for every room in all of our buildings on campus. We will also provide in the classrooms additional cleansing wipes, Oxivir wipes, if students would want to wipe off the desk or the seating area where they'll be sitting in the classroom. So those will be available in every classroom for students to use if they would choose.
Thank you. And one more question for your area about refunds. What will be our policy about refunds should we have to close campus early for, let's say, an outbreak?
Right. So it is our policy that a change in the method of delivery of instruction does not warrant a refund of tuition. However, if we would have to experience something like happened in the spring where all of the students would need to go home, then we would entertain the option for a refund of room and board like we did in the spring semester.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Moving to some other questions. What Will there be campus activities in the fall? Yes, there will be. They will look different than many of the campus activities that we've done. We bring a lot of people together and jump around in bouncy houses or go to a concert or have a band or whatever. So there will be limits to the kinds of activities we can do while on campus, but we for sure plan for students to have a fun, engaging experience while on campus. So our student activities staff are busy planning a way for the types of opportunities that they'll provide students related to campus activities. They're close contact with their professional associations and all of that to get all kinds of ideas happening at other campuses. And students can expect to see full calendars of options of how to spend their time if they're learning outside of the classroom while they're on campus. Let's switch to some questions about residential life. So Brian Emmerich is on the call, and Brian is our Director of Residential Life. Brian, some students want to know, and parents want to know, what happens with your stuff if you get put into quarantine upon arrival?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think certainly students will have traveled from a lot of different places, some of them from great distances. And so we want to be as accommodating as we can and help get the students' belongings into their permanent room on move-in day to the best of our ability. And I think we can make that happen in a number of ways. One of the options is to simply allow parents to move the students' belongings in. One of the things we've been discussing just very briefly is whether or not that should happen, given that a student perhaps tested positive, and perhaps has had close contact with the parents. And so how could that happen in a way that's safe for everybody, but facilitates the necessary, it facilitates a necessary process of getting the students' belongings in their space. So we're going to continue to talk a little bit about that and figure that out, but it's our goal on move-in day that your students' belongings can get into the student space, even if they're quarantined or isolated.
Thanks, Brian. Can I choose to be an in-person learner but live off campus instead of living in the residence halls?
Right now, the option to study away from campus is strictly for remote learners who are going to live and learn remotely from home. We are not offering an opportunity for folks to study in person on campus and live off campus in the community. The only caveat there is that students who have medical conditions that place them at higher risk can go through the medical accommodation process and be considered for an exemption. And we can refer you to that process through the Student Accessibilities Office.
Thanks, Brian. Rock, let's turn back to you and maybe ask you to respond to how to educate our students, faculty, staff about safety guidelines. How will we as a campus embrace these practices so that we can keep our safe?
Yeah, thank you, Dwayne. And I'll point back to some of the things that Dwayne said in talking about the we are OWU. We're going to need to all care for one another and be willing to put the needs of others in front of perhaps our own impulses or our own needs, and be willing to both abide by the guidelines that we're sharing with you this evening and hold one another accountable to those guidelines. We believe we can be safely on campus and have the benefit of the residential campus experience if we follow the guidelines, if we wear our masks, if we maintain appropriate physical distancing, if we monitor our health daily, if we do the things that we've been asked to do. But it will take the best of all of us. We are preparing an orientation, a virtual orientation, not only for students, but also for faculty and staff about what we will be asking in terms of the way we conduct ourselves on campus. And then we'll be giving ourselves booster shots every week with various ways in which we remind ourselves of the responsibilities that we have and the commitments that we make. So we will be asking students to complete that process in the week prior to coming to campus. There will be an opportunity for you to give an electronic signature as your indication of your commitment to the processes that we've set forward. And I'm confident that bishops will come together and work well with one another, and we will have a strong fall together.
Thank you, Rock. I want to clarify how commuters fit in testing protocol. So commuters will receive a testing scheduled time during the few days leading to classes. They will need to come to campus to receive their test as well, their screen. And then they will be in the pool of students that will be called every week, come in for additional testing or subsequent testing. So commuters, you're not checking into the residence halls, but we will need you to come to campus before class starts, and we'll tell you when that assigned time is to come in and receive your viral screening. So the goal here is to try to catch as much of it as possibly can on the way into the campus and isolate it so that we can start the semester off as healthy as possible. So more information to come, commuters. One more question for our academic folks. There have been a number of questions about how lab classes will be conducted, particularly for those that are remotely. And Supervisor, I know you've been responding a little bit on chat, but maybe you could go into some detail about that verbally.
Sure. So I think what I said on the chat was that lab courses and studio art courses, I think, are some of the ones that were most difficult and challenging to transition in the spring. And so those have been high on our priority list to figure out how to do them even better. And so we're prioritizing making sure that students who are in person can do those courses in person safely. So we've been looking at the maximum capacity for labs. When is it safe to do things with a mask? When do you need to have a face shield? So we're looking at all of the sort of best practices that we know for how to keep those labs safely done in person. But faculty are also working on doing remote labs, simulated labs, and things like that to make sure that students who can't come to class or those who are learning remotely have other options. It's been really quite impressive to look at the number of different places that our faculty are learning from, right? We're all students again at this moment to find out new ways of doing things that we thought we knew how to do really well. And we're trying to do that, learning from peers across the country. There's all sorts of resources out there that we've been taking advantage of, and our faculty are on it.
Thank you. One more clarification on remote learning, and then I want to turn it back over to Rock. We're at the end of our time here, and let him finish up for us. There may be a little confusion about what might have been about person learning, but requesting to live off campus. Remote, if you're approved to be a remote learner, time remote learner, first we're going to be quite flexible with that. So we anticipate approving the majority of these requests come through to be a learner. You don't necessarily have to have a medical reason why you want to be a remote learner. So we will look at all these and we'll see if there's any way to accommodate the concerns that are raised, and if not, then likely approve that as a remote learning opportunity for you. But if you're going to be an in-person learner, so you're choosing to come to campus to be an in-person learner, you will need to be in residence with us unless you're already approved to be a commuter student because you live in the local area. So I want to clarify that. If you're going to be an in-person learner, our residency policy applies, which means you need to live on campus. Okay, so I wanted to clarify that for folks. Thank you for your time today. I'm going to turn it back over to President Jones for a chance to wrap up.
Thank you, Dwayne, and thank you all for being with us. Thank you for all of the questions. We knew when we started we likely would not get through all of the questions. It may take a couple of days to get through them, answering them, but we will develop an FAQ and post it so that you can have access to the answers to the questions that you've asked. These are all good and important questions as we work together to prepare for a fall unlike any of us has ever experienced. Over the last couple of months, as we've been working internally, and so many people have worked so hard to bring us to this point, I found myself reflecting multiple times. Every time we answer a question, we seem to create 4 more questions. And I think in the chat function this evening is a reminder of the questions that are good and are important. And we want to be transparent and to provide as much information as possible. And I anticipate we may want to have another one of these sessions before students actually return. But we have come to the end of the time that we had set for this evening. As others have said, and let me say for myself, I have missed our students on campus. I've missed our faculty and staff on campus. And Melissa and I walk on the campus most evenings. It's eerily quiet. It's beautiful in the summer in Delaware. The campus is full of blossoms. You'll have beautiful sunsets, but the campus is not the campus without the people who make OWU OWU. We look forward to seeing you in August. We look forward to a good, strong, safe fall. And we send our very best wishes to all of you and to all of your families. We hope that you are safe and well. Feel free to reach out with other questions that you may have, and we will continue to send more information. In the meantime, I thank you for being with us this evening, and have a very good evening. And remember always, it's a great day to be a bishop.